Relax, Rohani. You'll be just fine, as you always have. Did anyone notice those words hovering in the background? Can you relate to any of them? Does it remind you of something? Of a big mush of thoughts and emotions that just don't know where they belong? Of your heart impelling you to find your truth in a predetermined world? Of a sneering midlife crisis before you've understood the term crisis? Let me tell you what it reminds me of. It reminds me of a girl who, despite being at the counselor's office thrice a week, didn't recognize that she was struggling with her thoughts. She would go to the counselor, cry it out, and temporarily feel better. She never for once understood the terms mental health or mental illness, even though she was constantly drained emotionally, bitter throughout the IB, and just wished that someone would save her from her thoughts. She never believed that her thoughts had the power to affect her gut, nor that her racing heartbeats were dangerous. As long as she could get work done, nothing else mattered. Funny, huh? How we tend to identify the big bad things occurring in our lives as catastrophe, and the ceaseless back and forth bickering of our thoughts as harmless. Left unchecked, our thoughts go on to create the catastrophes we're facing in our world at every level, as our emotions develop through our thoughts, and together, our emotions and thoughts determine the quality of our actions. Thus, our thoughts, emotions, and actions are deeply interlinked and deeply impact the relationships we have with ourselves, our fellow humans, other living beings, and Mother Nature. Do you know what my guru, Puja Bhaishri, defines as mental illness? Being regretful of the past, excessively worrying about the future, or being overly attached to the present. This last one quite reminds me of myself, because when I was in school, I found solace in routine. Pooping every morning, going to school, coming back, doing homework, exercising, having 3 meals a day, spending time with family, and repeating. That was my life, a carefully constructed formula that dared not change. And every time it tried to change, I worked even harder to keep it intact, and felt so proud every time I defeated time in that moment. I thought I had mastered time management, but what's the point if it doesn't welcome change? What's the point if you can't make time to develop the most nurturing bond of your life? The bond between yourself and your thoughts. Because prioritizing everything but yourself and having answers to everyone else's questions will not quench your thirst. It will instead make you this irritable human being who will eventually combust, like I did, after high school, when life became uncertain, a word I absolutely and passionately despised, and one that still makes me quite uncomfortable. I was so accustomed to the words perfection, certainty, grades, competition, and the phrase, "I will be happy once," that I couldn't acknowledge the nourishing words, such as growth, change, self-care, gratitude, journey. Not until I was thrown into the messy reality of life. Not until I went away to study architecture in Edinburgh. My proud answer to every auntie that would ask, "So, what are you going to study, Beta?" But only to realize that I was fading. And I wasn't able to speak about it because I felt ashamed of not knowing what the future held if I quit. These were not feelings I recognized. But I had to quit eventually because my inert body was pleading with me. Please, help me. Be with me because I can't go on any longer. I was battling between healing myself fast so that I could go back to school, or giving myself the time I required to heal. I ended up going back to another university and came back in 3 months. I know, it sounds funny to my ears as well. But at that point in time, I was devastated. So devastated that my heart sobbed in a numbed, paralyzed body. I thought that one big bad event was enough for a lifetime, but 2 big bad events, and that too consecutively? I must be cursed. This time, I couldn't get out of that messy, daunting state. All I did was repent my past choices and indulge in negative self-talk, as if it were a big bowl of Belgian chocolate ice cream. All my sentences began with, "What if?" and "I wish I." This time, I had to sit through the ruthless pain and feel every aching moment of it. I had to deal with every thought lovingly. In simpler terms, I had to learn how to think. You know, the way we learn to solve math problems by doing them over and over again? Because thinking is hard. Thinking makes us question everything and confuses us even more, right? But imagine we had someone to guide us through our thoughts. Someone who offered us options for addressing our problems. Someone who simply listened to us rant about life. Yes, I'm talking about a therapist. The one person I never wanted to meet because I found it pointless and belittling. But then she never treated anything I talked about as pointless. Not even my poop conundrum that lasted for 8 sessions straight. It was when my bowels started to relax a little and my poop cycle started to change that I finally agreed that yes, our gut is very much affected by our thoughts. Because whenever I'm anxious, my whole body becomes rigid and my bowels stop working. It's my body's way of telling me, uh-oh, something's wrong. Can you please address it so that I can function normally again? I find it both fascinating and disturbing that a single persistent thought, let alone several thoughts, has the power to make or break our body. All we need is a medium. Any medium that will drive us to confront our thoughts. Any medium that will reveal to us the source of our mental burden so that we can tackle it and learn from it. Not tackle it and forget about it, so that when the next problem comes, we don't know what to do and are once again questioning, why me? It's like getting stuck into a new hole. If we didn't retain what we tackled from if we didn't retain what we learned from tackling our last hole, then this hole would feel just as obnoxious and foreign, as if we've never dealt with getting stuck inside a hole before, which we all have, starting from the baby that persistently tries to get back up after experiencing its first fall. However, had we carried along the learning with us from our last hole and practiced it along the way, we would realize that every hole, although they may vary in depth, size, or substance, are connected by one force: our approach. Our approach dictates how we see life and thus thrive through each distinctive hole along the way. We refine our approach by sitting with our thoughts every single day, no matter how uncomfortable or baffling it may be, to understand them so that we can nurture them from our past experiences and blossom into a tree of felicitous thoughts. Becoming a tree of felicitous thoughts allows us to live in the present without grieving the past, becoming too comfortable with the present, or over-worrying about the future. We no longer delay happiness, but will naturally find it everywhere, such that even when we've fallen into a hole, we don't realize. But if we do, we work towards getting out of it instead of dwelling over, why me? Because as my guru says, happiness and sorrow are two wrestlers on the battlefield. When one is on top, the other is trampled underneath. But they're both still there, coexisting in a world of duality, which is exactly why we need consistent, compassionate introspection to help us maintain a rhythm in this dualistic world, to help our minds unclog effortlessly, the way writing When I Met Rouhani unclogged mine. When I started writing the book in late 2016, my goal was much simpler. I wanted to create a love story that was divine, one where the characters sought more than just sensual gratification. This was an experimentation not for the world to see. But when I picked up my almost discarded manuscript in 2018, a series of positive what-ifs followed. What if Rouhani is based on you? What if Aditya and Rouhani are both manifestations of you? What if the love story is set within the context of your past experiences? There were two Rouhanis now. The one writing about Rouhani and the character herself. The one writing about Rouhani was peeling several layers of her past experiences and identity off as she fed it to her manuscript, whilst the character herself was working towards peeling off those layers through the journey of the book. Now, there were still events, small holes occurring outside my book life, events that I couldn't control. But knowing that I could control the events inside my book made me feel both grateful and like a badass. The more I molded the plot and characters through my writing, the better I felt internally. It felt like moving around thought blocks until they fit perfectly to the tune and structure of my head. I felt empowered to create holes and then make sure that my characters got out of them, because it only supported me into getting out of my holes. So I was being unconsciously selfish. The more I wrote, the more I realized that my story carried many people's struggles, that it encompassed mundane sentiments. And this is when I realized the bigger purpose of my book. I wanted to give a voice to all those girls and boys who were struggling with internal issues that they were unable to speak about because of fearing the society, their family, or even themselves. I wanted to let them know that Rouhani is here for them, that he is their strength and always will be. Thus, the scope had changed, which wouldn't have been possible in 2016. So, funnily enough, I thank my unpleasant experiences, those unforeseen holes that made me question my existence back then, because without them, When I Met Rouhani would not exist. And without When I Met Rouhani, well, I wouldn't be up here. So, if you don't know what you want, say, I don't know what I want yet. That's when that thought of yours will delightedly accept defeat. Aha! She finally acknowledges my existence. She accepts me. Every time we accept our lack of knowledge, or rather, our ignorance in the moment, we're conquering our ego. By declaring that persistent, unsettling thought, we realize knowledge of our lack of knowledge, which is the very first knowledge. Our curiosity and willingness to receive what we don't know opens us up to a journey in the light of positivity filled with endless possibilities. We're giving our unsurety a high five and telling it, let's work together, buddy. You and I have a lot of knots to untangle. That's the brave journey that Rouhani is on. Thank you.